Hello everyone and welcome back. I'm your host, Ipernick. It has been a while, hasn't it? Thank you for helping me reach 100 plus subscribers. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe too. That being out of the way, since the series about ancient Italy has been quite a hit, I will continue through that path and talk about Italy a little longer. Today I will talk about the Italian unification. I love this topic and I know quite a lot about it, so I hope you will enjoy it too. That being said, let's get right into it. Italy was one of the first countries that was founded out of an ideology. New ideas from intellectuals in the middle classes drastically changed the political landscape of the world, starting from the US and later France. Italy stands out, however, because unlike the French model, it balanced out the needs of the upper and lower classes. The person behind this was the Piemontese Prime Minister Cavour. He was a brilliant politician, and he almost single-handedly took care of the diplomatic part of the Italian unification. He was very similar to Bismarck in many regards. Another reason why the Italian unification stands out is that it embodied the concept of self-determination of people, which implied that all the people of certain ethnicity and cultural group should govern themselves. The Italians had been under foreign kings ever since the Western Roman Empire fell over 1500 years before, and the creation of a united Italian state would later inspire other countries to do the same. Before the unification, Italy was divided into several states. They all had been established after the Congress of Vienna of 1815, and most of these states had close ties to Austria, some closer than others. In the south, we had the Kingdom of Two Sicilies, under the Bourbon dynasty. They were originally Spanish kings that intermarried with the Habsburgs and the Wittelsbach royal families. The kingdom's economies were noticeably behind for their time, and the Catholic Church owned 50% of the country's land. Regardless, many technological advances were made, and the kingdom was the richest of the whole peninsula. Their navy was one of their biggest achievements, being one of the biggest and most advanced in Europe at the time. Then we have the Papal State, a country under the control of the Pope as an absolute monarch. It was arguably the harshest and poorest of them all. It was kept alive by mostly foreign intervention. Further north, we have the tiny nation of San Marino. Then we have the three Austrian puppet duchies of Tuscany, Parma, and Modena. Then we had the two kingdoms under direct Austrian rule, Lombardy and Veneto. And finally, the Kingdom of Piedmont and Sardinia. Piedmont would be the kingdom behind the unification, all thanks to the Prime Minister Cavour, King Victor Emmanuel II of the Savoy dynasty, and Giuseppe Garibaldi, the general behind the latest stages of the unification. He would later become the national hero after fighting for the country in many occasions. In the years leading to 1848, there were many people with different opinions on how a united Italian state should have worked. There were four main ones. The one from philosopher Giuseppe Mazzini, who wanted a fully democratic Italian state, with a similar system it has today. Statesman Vincenzo Gioberti wanted an Italian confederation with the Pope as a constitutional monarch. Philosopher Carlo Cattaneo wanted an Italian federal republic, and finally Camillo Benso Cavour, yes, the prime minister, he wanted a constitutional monarchy under Piedmont. So basically he wanted Piedmont to be in charge of the whole country. At the end, Cavour was the one who fulfilled these views, because he was basically the only one with the right tools to do it, though he would never witness it himself, as he died of a fever in 1861, and Italy became fully united 9 years later. Unfortunately for him, Mazzini got the last laugh, because in 1948 Italy became a parliamentary republic, and it remains so to this day. These ideas spread out until 1848. Many cities in the peninsula, as well as in the rest of the continent, revolted and demanded a constitution. In France, the revolts would kick out the king and establish a new republic under Napoleon III, the niece of Napoleon Bonaparte. Down south, after the unrest in Palermo, King Ferdinand II decided to concede a constitution. The Sicilians were not happy, so they called for independence. The king would respond 1 year later by bombing the crap out of the city of Messina, even after they gave up, and re-establishing direct rule over the kingdom, after retaking control over the island. The rest of the states were forced to give in a constitution as well. Rome was the only one who refused, and the Pope was deposed by a group of Republicans. Among them was Giuseppe Mazzini and Giuseppe Garibaldi, and they tried to establish a free republic in Rome, which fell a year later. Piedmont accepted a constitution as well. Carlo Alberto, the king at the time, saw in the unification a good chance for expansion. In fact, later that year he would march his armies in Lombardy in order to reunite the missing Italian lands under his rule. All of the Italian countries joined him, and he had a few first victories. Shortly after, however, all of his allies pulled out and he was defeated by Austria in 1848. He then tried in 1849 to attack again, but this time the war went even worse for him, and he abdicated soon after, giving the throne to his son Victor Emmanuel II. This was the end of the First War of Independence, and it was a huge failure, especially because by the end of 1849, all but one country in Italy had a constitution, that being Piedmont. This document, which was called the Albertinian Status, was short and a bit vague, but it was enough for the Italian nationalists and Republicans to see Piedmont as the right country to be behind the unification. Let's fast forward for a couple of years. 1852, Cavour becomes Prime Minister in the now constitutional monarchy of Piedmont and Sardinia. He shows off how smart he is from the very start by using his strategy called connubio to isolate all the radicals in the parliament and build strong support in the house. His strategy was to be at the center and concede the various things to all the moderates and ignore the radicals. By doing this, he built himself a strong following in the country, so he dedicated himself to foreign policy for most of his terms. When the Crimean War broke out in 1854, he joined in together with England, France and Turkey to defeat Russia. During the peace talks, he managed to bring attention to his plans of a united Italy, and those plans intrigued Napoleon III, who was looking for more ways to leave a mark on Europe, just like his grandfather did. In 1858, the two kings, Victor Emmanuel and Napoleon III, met at Plombières, where they made a defensive alliance against Austria. The ultimate plan was to tease Austria so that it would attack Piedmont. Then France would come to the rescue, and together they would conquer all the Italian lands under Austria. There was a catch, however. In exchange for the help, Napoleon wanted the cities of Savoy and Nice, and Rome was off limits. Cavour agreed and then sent the troops at the border and prepared for war. Keep in mind that this defensive alliance was a secret, so people knew that the two kings met, but no one really knew the reason behind it. It may sound unnecessary to know for now, but just remember it for the future. In 1859, Austria declared war on Piedmont, and war between the three nations broke out. General Garibaldi was also in the ranks of Piedmont and fought well along his Republican troops. The Second War of Independence lasted barely 3 months, as France decided to back out, seeing the huge losses, and they were also afraid that Prussia would intervene. By the end, all they got was Lombardy, and couldn't reach Veneto. But the dukes, who were in charge of the puppets in central Italy, had escaped to Austria, so Piedmont had the chance to move in and call for a plebiscite, where people voted to join Piedmont. By this point, Piedmont was no longer Piedmont, and had now become the Kingdom of Italy, and got this very nice flag. So by 1860, there were 4 countries in Italy. Italy, the Papal State, the Kingdom of Two Sicilies, and San Marino. Since there is a lot more to say, I will split this video in 2 parts. Expect the next part to come out very soon. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.